Hi, I'm Max Walker&Williams, and today I have travelled to New York City to interview the man, the myth, the legend that is Jorden Fried. Jorden grew up as one of 10 children in a middle-class family in Buffalo. From a very young age, he was interested in technology, and in fact, by the time he was 12 years old, he was pretending to be 18 on the internet so that he could do his tomfoolery, bit of wheeling and dealing, and also push the boundaries of what was possible at the time. And that earned Jorden a lifetime ban from PayPal. After quitting college, Jorden decided to move to Budapest on his own, and there it was a need to watch American TV that led Jorden to set up a VPN business that he later sold for millions. After selling the business for millions, he moved back here to New York City, where a friend of his, Andrew Musano, introduced him to two men, Leemon and Mance. And it was at that meeting that the Hedera Hashgraph that we know today was born. Today, Jorden is an incredibly successful entrepreneur and author, and is the owner of Immutable Holdings, which includes 1-800-Bitcoin, NFT.com, and a wealth management fund that is HBAR centric with over $400 million under its control. But Jorden's not without controversy either. He launched his NFT.com Genesis key project on the Ethereum network. He's claimed that luck doesn't exist, and he's also said publicly that XRP is going to be number one. In a recent interview, Jorden said that he's 80% of his way to being where he wants to be in business, but I don't believe that for 1 second. Jorden, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Do you like the
Max.
introduction?
That's a fantastic introduction.
Thank you very much. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again,
Thanks
buddy.
for coming to New York.
I know, yeah. Well, thank you for having me. What's it like to be back? Why are you here? Is it just to meet me, or are you...
Largely to meet you.
Oh,
but,
thank you. I
I'm
appreciate
here for
that.
also the Benzinga conference.
Oh, yeah.
There's a great event that's happening in town.
And you were speaking at that?
Yes. I
Yeah.
had no idea how big this business is. Benzinga was just acquired for a massive sum, $300 million for only like 50% of their business. So,
wow.
But great financial publication, and they had a Future of Crypto event with Scaramucci. Kevin O'Leary was there.
Yeah.
He's in the headlines a lot these days.
He is indeed, yeah.
It was a great event. I got to give the keynote this morning, and then yesterday talk about the future of JPEGs.
Wow, the future of JPEGs. Okay, and so have you had a good time? Has it been good? What was the feedback like? Because you've just come straight from there, right?
Yeah, listen, New York's the center of the universe, in my opinion. I mean, everything that is happening in the world that's worth knowing about, really, in some way, shape, or form, is connected here. It comes through here.
Yeah, or starts here as well.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff starts in New York.
A lot of stuff starts here. This is where I first met Mance and Leemon, actually.
Yeah.
So, as you said. And not too far from where we are right now, actually. So I love coming back to New York, especially during the holiday season. Great
Perfect.
place.
Oh yeah, of course. I've been before, but I've never been during the holiday season. And we've literally just got off the plane, so I can't wait to explore New York in the winter. Yeah. So tell me what it was like then, growing up. 9 siblings, 10 children, normal family. You know, in the sense that like middle class. You know, you weren't super rich parents or super poor, but just normal kind of family life other than the 9 siblings?
Yeah, so, I mean, normal is relative, I guess, right? Your normal is different from my normal. I thought everyone had 10 kids in their family, right? So it was really shocking to me when they didn't. And it's a diverse family too, right? But I also didn't realize that it was diverse. I have 2 African-American brothers through adoption and 3 sisters with Down syndrome through adoption. And for me, it was normal. My mom loves to tell this story of when I first was born and I was old enough to talk. It was actually my brother who said it. He looked at me and said, "Mom, why doesn't my brother have skin?" Because he thought that everybody looked like him. So again, for me, that was everyday life. It was fantastic. Other people who are listening to this who come from big families, I'm sure would agree. There's good and there's bad, but it's mostly predominantly good.
How do you think that sort of that diversity that you touched on? How do you think that shaped you as a person, sort of growing up? Does it give you a different outlook now that you're aware of the context of your childhood? Do you think it's had any influence on you growing up?
100%. I remember precisely the moment I first realized my brothers were black, and really? It was in 5th grade. And you could say, I think you grew up in that environment, like, you're colorblind. And for me, I was colorblind. I remember there was a kid, I don't want to say his name in case he's listening to this, but I remember the kid. He was a bit of a dick. And my mom gave him a lift home. He lived in the neighborhood, and he gets in the he gets in the minivan, and I'm there, and my brothers are there, and he goes, "Holy shit, your brothers are black." And I look at them, and I'm like, "Oh my God, they are!" And it was
Really?
the first,
Really?
It was the first time I had processed in my head. I'm like, "Oh my God, wow, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different." And I had never seen someone else's reaction to that. There was a very a raw, unfiltered. He was a kid, right?
It was naive.
So it was naive,
innocent,
but it
I
was.
guess,
That's the first time I remember thinking, "Oh, this is different."
maybe
for
I'm
people.
different, and maybe my whole situation is different.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. And so, how would you get banned from PayPal for life? I don't want to. It's old. It's an old story, but it is funny, and a lot of people have asked. What were you doing specifically to get banned from PayPal for life? just pretending to be 18 when you were 12?
No. We had a lot of computers at home. My dad was a technologist, still is, and he allowed us to, with him, he would build. He had this company called the Tech Shop in Buffalo, where they would literally sell computers out of our home. And I always had access to computer parts.
Right, okay.
And
That explains a lot.
I started seeing what was going on, and I said, "Dad, can I build one?" And he said, "Of course." So I started taking some parts out of these different bins, and we would put the motherboard together and put it in and put the hard disk in, and we'd load the computer up and be like, "Wow, that's how you build a computer." I got to plug everything in, and we had these static electricity strips. So I had my own computer, and we were always the first family in the neighborhood with a high-speed internet connection. Yeah. And it's I imagine it's hard now that I think of what my parents had to go through, watching 10 kids. So I got away with a lot.
I'm feeding them too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I got away with a lot, and that included spending a lot of time on the internet. And one of the things we ended up doing was creating a secondary market around a video game called RuneScape, which actually is a British video game from a company called Jagex Limited, which was really popular in upstate New York and in Canada and elsewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. And my brother played it. Everybody I knew played it. And I one day just said, "Hey, what happens if I sell the currency in this video game on the internet?" So I started listing it on PayPal. And then I built a website called runemint.com by taking my dad's credit card and buying that. And I bought a quick server and threw up the website up on the server. And I had learned how to put websites up at this point.
And you're 12 years old
yeah,
at this point?
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
11, 12.
Yeah.
And I got a PayPal Buy It Now button, and I threw it on the website. And we went to school, and I'd come home, and there'd be hundreds of dollars in the PayPal account from people who had purchased RuneScape gold points. So I'm like, wow, people want RuneScape gold points really badly. They'll pay for these.
And they'll pay for them.
On eBay and on my website. And then we'd go meet them in the game and give them the RuneScape gold points. Yeah. And it got so big so quickly that I actually... I didn't have enough RuneScape gold points. I had sold more than we had. So I went to this website. It was called runehq.com, which was the top fan forum for RuneScape. And we took out a banner ad on the top of the website that said buying RuneScape gold points for $10. I was selling them for $20, and for $1 million. Yeah. And it was unbelievable. I mean, we'd go to school, come home, it'd be $500. We'd go to school, come home, it'd be $1,000, and it just grew. And
so it was a real.
It was a real business. I mean, we started making thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands of dollars, and it really started scaling. It got to the point where a knock on the door came, and Jagex Limited threatened me, to say it politely. And I got in a lot of legal trouble.
Really,
and then
really?
They didn't,
Serious?
Yes. Well, they were a multi-billion-dollar game company. And they...
but what were you doing wrong? It's not copyright.
Well, so first, in their defense, they had no idea who I was or where I was.
Fair.
So I think they thought we were like a big operation. And I imagine what they were thinking. This is like a Chinese operation on a farm with hundreds of people earning, RuneScape gold points and selling it. And
earning them in the game for free, effectively.
Yes. And we had a lot of customers from all over the world who were meeting up with and fulfilling all these orders. And they had contacted our web host. They contacted Yahoo Small Business, where we registered the domain name, got lifetime bans from all of those. And then, of course, they contacted PayPal, and PayPal immediately froze all of our accounts. And didn't just freeze it, opened up a case on us and an inquiry on us, realized I was underage and lying about my age.
Wow.
So that's how, long way of me saying, that's how the PayPal ban happened.
I've got a spare PayPal account that I'm willing to lend you. So we'll talk about that
so
later.
I'm allowed to have PayPal accounts now, but through legal entities. No, So once I've learned what a limited liability company was, I'm like, oh, I can be a company, not a person.
Yeah.
I can't be the signer for the company, so I have to get like a controller or
for PayPal still today.
It's my social security number that's flagged, even all these years later. We tried it again recently. And
Did you? That's so funny. America is such a huge and diverse place that most Americans, and I know a lot of people in the world call them ignorant, but I understand because I've been to many different states. It's such a diverse place in terms of like geographical locations, weather, climate, and so on, and cultures too, that I understand why people don't really consider, a lot of people in America don't even consider going on holiday outside of America, let alone living anywhere else. So Budapest, on your own, how were you on your own, yeah?
I grew up...
Did you throw a dart at a board, or what happened?
It's a great question. I think about this a lot, actually, and I actually think what it was it was when we were growing up, my parents needed help with the kids, and they had for a very short period of time, they had managed to find this Hungarian girl to come over. She was a young adult, and they paid for her papers and got her a green card and brought her to America. And she lived in our basement, and she helped take care of us.
Right,
and,
a nanny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like an au pair, mother's helper kind of thing.
Au pair.
And she was from Budapest. She was from Hungary, and she used to. I was so young. It was probably she left working for us when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. But I remember that 4, 5, 6 year old period where she would read me bedtime stories, and then right when she was done, I would ask her to tell me about where she was from because I knew it was different from where I was from. She would tell me these stories of Hungary, and it was a very romanticized view of Hungary. She would tell me things like, the strongest men in the world are from Hungary. And actually, if you go back, the guy who won the world's strongest man competition, he was a Hungarian guy, named Gabor Zsolt or something, a big burly. So I thought, wow, all Hungarian men are so strong. She used to tell me the women are beautiful. I used to love her because she was very beautiful. And I thought, oh my God, the women are beautiful. And I just had this very rosy, exactly. I think that was pretty formative for me. And when I was old enough, I'm like, I have to go to this place. My mom's brother had made a business there as well in Eastern Europe. And
so there's a connection. Yes, so it wasn't quite
exactly. So I had gone over to see him and to see what this country was about, but I had no idea I'd lived there for so long.
Meet all these strong men and all these beautiful women.
Well, it was actually pretty disappointing.
Did you get off the plane and were you like, where are all the...
Right. I mean, listen, I'm old enough to know that, but I'm like, wow, these men are not that strong, but the women were very beautiful.
Okay. So 1 out of 2 is not bad.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. And so how old were you when you started the VPN business?
So I actually started writing about VPNs well before I ever started the business. And a lot of people don't realize that. It was not an overnight success story, and it took years for me to even fully understand what VPNs were as just someone who blogged about it. So how it actually happened, it was quite organic. I was an American kid living abroad, and I thought, blogging's a thing now. Let me create a blog. And the only person who read my blog was my mom. And it was on jordenfried.com. I set up a webpage, and I would write about being an American kid in Budapest and what I would see on my travels. And I'd go to Vienna, and I'd write about it. And one of the things I wrote was this tell-all problem I had, which was I can't access the web apps I love. I can't access Pandora, Hulu, or Netflix, and I can't watch the Buffalo Bills. And I started Googling solutions and how to do this. I learned what a virtual private network was. I'd never heard of a VPN. A lot of Americans hadn't. We didn't need it for a long time. And I realized, okay, here's this way for me to tunnel my traffic and get a US IP address while living in Budapest. And it's great for British people to get watch BBC iPlayer outside the UK and get an English IP address. And I realized, wow, here's this elegant solution. So I wrote about it and I put this page up. And slowly, this page starts going viral. And I hadn't monetized it. I hadn't done anything with it. And a buddy of mine says, you're sending all of his traffic to, he showed me on my Google Analytics, he's like, look how much people you're getting. And I was getting tens of thousands of people to this page every single month. And it was, you know, snowballing and growing and growing. And he goes, why don't you put an affiliate link? They have an affiliate program. I said, what's an affiliate program? And he showed me what an affiliate program was. I was young. And I put a link on there. And the first month it was like $150. And I'm like, wow, beer money. That goes a long way in Hungary.
Yeah.
And the second month it was like $500. And the third month it was like, you know, $1,000 and then $2,000.
So small, but growth, real growth.
Real growth. It got so large that I quit my job.
What was your job?
Well, I was doing like SEO consulting,
right?
Like,
okay.
You know, doing search engine. That was my thing.
Yeah.
I would hit people up on LinkedIn and be like, "Hey, I'll help you rank high in Google."
Right. Okay.
Because I had kind of like figured out how to get this page, this blog,
a
little bit higher on Google, and I decided to like do this blogging thing full time, where I was blogging about VPNs.
Yeah.
It was then I became the largest affiliate for this one company. It was an English company called Privex Limited, but their brand was called Hide My Ass VPN, and they got acquired. They got acquired years later. But I remember going to. I got invited to go to Las Vegas with the CEO of Hide My Ass VPN, and I'm like, I'd never been to Las Vegas before, so I had to fly from Budapest to Las Vegas, and I'm all excited. I put on my best shirt. We're going to a nightclub. And I remember I meet the kid and he's my age. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, you're the CEO of this company? You built a software company? Yeah. And it was January of like I think it was 2012. And I had decided at that point, I met him and it was like, it clicked. It was like, oh my gosh, I am making this guy rich. He pays me a fortune. I'm making, you know, now I'm making over $250,000 a year. US at that time. A lot of money for me. I'm living in Budapest.
Yeah.
I get
a lot of money in today.
Yeah, I also, you know, Americans, we get this foreign income exclusion. So I'm banking, you know, I'm banking some good money. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, not like treating it like a business, but I'm like, I got to get serious about this because this guy's got a software company and he's, you know.
And if he's paying me $250, what the heck's he making?
Exactly.
I'm a funnel. All these customers are passing through your hands.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm in the power position. I'm sending in the customers. Yeah. So I call a buddy who I knew was a developer in Budapest. I say, do you want to meet me in Thailand? And I have a crazy idea. And he goes, that's crazy. So him and his girlfriend met me and my girlfriend at the time in Thailand in January. We flew to Thailand.
Why Thailand?
It was really random. But Budapest is very cold and miserable in January, and we wanted to get out of Budapest. So it's like a Siberian tundra. And we went to Phuket, a little town called Rawai Beach in Phuket, and we rented this house. And in that house, in over a 90-day period, we built the first version of Buffered VPN.
Wow. And
pushed it live. It was a terrible first version, but whatever. People paid for it, and I turned off all my traffic. I called him. His name was Jack Cater. He ended up selling Hide Mask for 60 million pounds.
Wow.
Did quite well.
I'm sure he's happy.
Yes,
somewhere.
And I called him up. This was before he sold it, and I said, Jack, I'm very sorry, but I just want to let you know I'm going to stop sending you traffic. And he goes, he was very mature about it. He goes, I totally understand. Best of luck to you. And wish me luck. And I was in business as Buffered VPN.
Oh, that was good of him. And how old were you sort of in this period? So kind of, when you were in Thailand, how old were you? Can you remember roughly?
How old was I? I mean, 24, 25.
Right, okay. So
young.
Still young.
Yeah.
And then
didn't have a developed frontal cortex. I was making irrational decisions.
The join hadn't fully formed. Okay, and you've talked about that in previous interviews a little bit about, you know, you didn't really fully understand. You kind of learnt on the job, you know, and as it was building quicker than you were learning almost. And so, how long then from being in Thailand and launching to selling the business was that?
For almost 4 years. It was fast. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it didn't feel fast, but it was fast.
Yes.
And it was fast in the sense that, one, I didn't build it with the intent on selling it. No. I didn't even build it like consciously thinking what was going to happen. I just was like, he's making more money. I'm going to do what he's doing.
I can be me to myself.
Exactly.
And so you did. And then the next thing, you didn't have like a plan and I'm going to have a brand and protect it. And it was just, I need to fix this problem.
I had a mentor who later better articulated it, and it's what I ended up doing, but I didn't realize it at the time. And the mentor said to me, find somebody who's where you want to be and do what they're doing, right? Like find someone who's where they are. And I like subconsciously did that, right? I saw Jack. I'm like, I want to be where Jack is. Jack's in a power position. He's got 100 plus people working for him. He's got this big VPN. Like, why am I subservient to Jack? Like, I can be Jack. Jack's not smarter than me.
Yeah.
He's a pale English kid from the countryside who's like in a nightclub dropping bottles. Must have spent $30,000 in the nightclub that night. I'm like, I can be Jack.
Yeah, I want to be a pale English kid.
So flew to Thailand and tried to figure out, what's Jack doing, and
did it.
Yeah,
you did it.
and I did it. Yeah, I was too dumb. I was too dumb to even think through what that would entail, to even think it through. So I just did it, and I think that's also I just take action, even if it's stupid.
That's got to be even more important. You can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't take any action, then it's for nothing.
I've never sat down and written a business plan. I wouldn't even know how to write one.
Neither do I. Neither do I. Because how do you account for having a nanny that adores a place that you then go to? How do you account for starting that way? And then there's too many twists and turns, I believe, in real life.
100%.
And if you look at most companies, and I have done because I'm a geek like that, if you look at their business plan retrospectively,
yes,
it's never anywhere near what they planned or set out,
or the original pitch deck of like what a business ends up becoming.
Yeah,
we'll get to it in a second, but what Mance and Leemon originally pitched me with Hashgraph was not Hedera.
No, exactly.
Something wildly different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all the work, time, and effort that went into that business plan was just for nothing, because
exactly.
You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow,
and you don't know what customers actually want until you have customers and they tell you what they want. So we first sold Buffered VPN as a way to watch American Netflix, but by the time we'd sold the company, we were a privacy company. Yeah. We were making donations to the Electronic Freedom Foundation. We were defending Edward Snowden, and we were like vocal about it. We were getting involved in like the politics.
So there's a bit of a political element to it as well.
With the politics of net neutrality and all of it. People.
So as early as that, you were.
Oh, we started the company before anyone ever knew who Edward Snowden was. So timing, another thing. Timing is everything in life, and the timing, I couldn't have planned it better. I had discovered what a VPN was, again, before the total addressable market for consumer VPNs was even a multi-billion-dollar market. Yeah. People didn't buy VPNs as consumers, they were for companies. Yeah. VPNs were ways that employees at Goldman Sachs or Barclays would log into key banking systems from outside the office. Why would a consumer have a VPN? It just was it was very early for that. So.
Yeah, it was very early. Everyone was very trusting, and it grew, and then bad actors came in, and the requirement grew and grew and grew. And now, particularly, it's not so much in the UK, but in America, it's massive, isn't it?
So as what we were doing online became a little bit more, we were pushing the boundaries. You remember torrenting and file sharing, all that sort of stuff. As that was growing, these are the days of like Kim.com and all of that craziness. It became important for people to secure their data packets, to not have your internet service provider know what you were doing, and people started to get paranoid. But I actually credit Edward Snowden with that, in that Edward Snowden rightfully made us paranoid, and then people started caring about internet privacy. Yeah. Our business 10x'd overnight after Edward Snowden. He's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And did you beat Jack? Because you sold your business.
Yes.
You said he sold for 60 million?
I can't say what we sold for.
Can't or what?
Both.
Why?
I don't advertise. I don't advertise wealth. It's not something. My watch was a gift from my wife. I wear the same black T-shirt every single day. We talked about this. I don't want to put outward. You won't see photos of me on outwardly showing wealth, dropping bottles here and there on social media. I think there's a problem with it, and I think that people are too obsessed with it and we worship it.
100%.
That's not to say I don't as well. Clearly, it's been a goal of mine to accumulate it.
Yes.
And I'm certainly playing a game to do that.
Yes.
I just prefer not for other people to know my scorecard.
Okay, fair enough. Let me ask you the same question a slightly different way, so I think you'll be comfortable answering it. Did you beat Jack?
I didn't.
Because he's the one who...
On that one, I did not. I have beaten Jack since.
Okay, good answer. That's fine. So I like that you're still keeping scores. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so you've now sold the business. You've moved back to... not back to America, but to New York.
Yeah.
And that was a very conscious choice, or did you have another au pair, or...
That one's probably attributed to Frank Sinatra, right?
So it's an ego thing.
If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right?
So you're testing yourself.
I had a 6-month period of depression after selling the company, which is not something that anyone talks about or prepares you for. It should be a joyous occasion. I was actually with my family when it happened. I remember when the escrow cleared. It was more money than I ever thought I would see in my checking account, especially at that age. I was 26. No, I must have been 20. I was 27 when it happened. So I was still quite young.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with my family in Florida, and I remember like tapping my dad and showing him, and we popped a bottle of champagne. And
he must have been so proud.
He was. I didn't understand it at the time, how proud he was. I understand it now, but I only felt sadness, like immediately after. And
well, you've lost a massive part of your life.
It was my entire identity. I was Jorden Fried, founder and CEO of Buffered VPN. I didn't even know how to introduce myself. I felt insecure. Family members would ask me, "What am I working on?" And I'd be like, I don't know. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I have no idea what I'm going to do next. I've lost my first child. It felt like I just lost my first child.
I get it.
I was like, oh my gosh. It was really, it took me months to process this. So I did what I thought you were supposed to do. I took my wife, we went to the shopping mall. We bought 2 massive Samsonite suitcases, a pack and play crib. My firstborn was 4 months old. And I said, let's go to Hawaii. And we went to Hawaii. I'd never been to Hawaii before. I'm like, I saw it in the movies. We got to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So we go to Hawaii. We spent a month in Hawaii. And then I look at her and I'm like, let's go to Japan. It's 6 hours that way. She goes, let's do it. We go to Japan, spend a month in Japan.
Wow.
And I remember, we weren't thinking through the trip at all. I had no idea. I was kind of aimlessly going about the day, just being a tourist. Again, have nothing to wake up for, nothing to work on.
Just in a blur, like in a haze.
Honestly, not present.
Yeah.
Not present in
Yeah.
Japan. I look at the photos of myself and I'm like, wow. I'm just like out of my body in that particular moment. Just like physically present, but not mentally present. And took the train in Japan. I wanted to see Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I wanted to go to these places, and I wasn't done yet. So I'm like, let's go to China. I wanted to go see the Great Wall of China. We went to China, saw the Great Wall. This continued. I wanted to go see North Korea, so we went to South Korea as close as we could get to the tunnels, and went to the DMZ, saw North Korea,
right.
And keep going. Wasn't done yet. It was like, let's go to India, Taj Mahal, and we just. Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on with me? And
what you're looking for isn't in
it's not in any of these places. It's in my head.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it dawns on me. I'm like, I am unhappy because I am not waking up working on something every single day.
Yeah.
And I actually look back, and those 6 months probably saved my life from the perspective we almost got divorced. We were fighting every single day. It was really, we were at each other's throats. We're raising a baby on the road, and doing all of this on the road, and it was very hard. I mean, my mom would call and she'd be like, your baby's 6 months old. You have to get a vaccination. You have to get a shot. And we just call a doctor in Japan and be like, can you vaccinate our baby? The mandatory shots you have to get, the tetanus.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
but you're asking in a foreign country that might not have.
In a foreign country,
mayhem.
And exactly. And I'm like, oh no, not those shots, not the Japanese ones. Can you get the American shots, on the American vaccine schedule?
Yeah.
And the whole thing's a shit show, not planned. We didn't have visas to where we were going next, so we're waiting for visas.
So it wasn't a luxury kind of thing.
No. Very, very stressful. I got to Japan and had a rental car waiting, but didn't have an international driver's license. The whole thing was nuts, right?
Was you and your wife nearly getting divorced, and being at each other? Was that your fault?
100% my fault.
Was it?
100% my fault.
Okay.
I was a disaster.
Okay.
I would have divorced me at that time. Yeah. I mean, okay. I was absolutely immature, selfish, moping around, and I was rich by any standard, and unhappy.
Yeah.
And so the food was great. Loved going. We ate sushi every single day. Gained a lot of weight. Went to the Tsukiji fish market, and it was amazing. But the lesson I learned in all of that. We actually came back to Budapest, and we hadn't decided to move to America yet. But it comes to a head where I look at my wife and I'm like, I'm gonna die here. I'm falling apart in Budapest.
Bad?
It was so bad. I couldn't wake up. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I was busy. I'd never been like this in my entire life. And no one told me about this. None of my buddies who had sold the company was like it was just not talked about. And I'm talking about it because I think it's a real problem for serial entrepreneurs, for people with our personality types who always are looking for that next rush. My drug of choice is building a company.
Yes.
I am a drug addict from the perspective of I can't stop building a business. And once I stopped, I was dying. So my lesson is, and by the way, I've also learned it doesn't have to be a business. If I don't plan what I'm going to do and do something productive, either go to the gym or try to get 1% better at something, I end up in a very unhappy state. I can't sit at the beach.
You get in trouble.
I'm a terrible person to go on holiday with. It's just not something I can do.
Same.
I have to be working. I have to be working. I have to be building. So that 6 months taught me that. I look at my wife, and she says, absolutely not. We're not moving to America. No way. I don't want a green card. I don't want to do it.
Why does she feel that strongly?
She's a very proud Hungarian, rightfully so. She comes from an amazing country with amazing history, and she's so proud. I mean, she gets so emotional about her politics and her elections. That's who she is. It's a big part of who she is. And I fell in love with that version of her. And now I'm trying to take her from her home, which I feel bad about, but I also am like, I can't do this. I can't start another company here. There's nothing for me here. I was lucky enough to make the first one, successful. I've got to get out. And I ended up having to get my mother-in-law involved, and my mother-in-law is the most amazing woman in the world, and she helped me convince my wife to do a 1-year trial in New York City, and that's how we ended up back here.
And the minute she landed, I guess, then fell in love with the place, and you bonded more.
Not right away. It took a while. Again, I didn't plan it out very well either. We had landed.
For a guy who doesn't believe in luck.
We'll talk about luck in a second, but we had gotten here. I'd ordered a bunch of furniture from IKEA. I wanted to do it really cheap because I want to buy a bunch of really expensive stuff, and then she just pulls the rug and says, we got to go back to Budapest. I had no idea if it was going to stick.
Okay.
So we get to the US, we get our green card papers in, literally I was not very much help in the situation because I'm looking for my next thing right away. And I get this phone call to show up at a buddy's apartment in Tribeca, and I headed down, and he gives me the Swirlds white paper, and I go home, devour it, and send him a list of 25 to 30 questions about it.
This is Andrew?
This is Andrew.
Andrew Musano,
and he says, okay, slow down. Why don't you just come ask them in person? And I said, are they here? He goes, no, but they'll be here in a day. And this is my first week in New York, New York City. Mance and Leemon show up to New York City.
Tell me all about that, because, look, obviously at the time you didn't know what was going to come of that meeting, but that was where the Hedera Hashgraph that we know today was formed, because it hadn't, until you came on the scene, it wasn't going to be a thing.
Sure.
A lot of people don't know that. And I don't think, if I'm being completely honest, that I think a lot of the people in the Twitter space especially don't pay you, in my respect, and I'm not just saying this because you're sat here, don't pay you the respect that I believe you deserve, because if it weren't for you, well, you tell the story.
So again, I'm making investments in blockchain companies at this time, and you didn't have to be a brilliant investor. I still would not call myself a brilliant investor. Again, timing. My timing was flawless. I had a liquidity event, I had capital, and I'm literally just deploying it. But I did have knowledge on what I thought to be a good project versus a bad project, and I had understood more than the average person in the space did as to what Bitcoin was and what Ethereum was and what the differences were, and proof of work and some of these other things that were out there. At this point, I show up to this meeting. I have a million questions because if you read the Swirlds white paper, Leemon is in a not so subtle way simply saying that proof of work is shit and that he can do it better. In his academic language, of course. He doesn't actually use that language. I've never heard Leemon swear.
No.
In my
corporate talk.
Yes, in my interpretation, it was proof of work is garbage.
It's inefficient.
There's a better way to do Bitcoin. I hadn't met people that spoke that way. Bitcoin, to me, was the greatest invention ever. So at first, I'm actually offended by what I'm reading, and I thought it was arrogant. So I first approached it as, how can you say this? Bitcoin is a fundamental breakthrough. Ethereum is a continuation of that. It's also a fundamental breakthrough. You can't just poop on this thing. It's fundamentally disruptive. And I meet them. They're both unbelievably polite. And their model was not that they wanted to beat Bitcoin, or not that Bitcoin wasn't good, but that there were some problems with proof of work. And again, all in a very polite way. And what they had was an algorithm that could be taken and licensed to large companies for private blockchains. And they had this company called Swirls, and they had spun it out of this company called Ping Identity, where Mance was running the labs organization, and Leemon was being brought in to do like contracted work. Right. Leemon was just like this engineer over here. They'd bring in like, hey, we're working on this identity thing, like, do you want to fool around with it? And meanwhile, Leemon is working on this like really hard problem, his own solution to the Byzantine generals problem, which is not a proof of work solution, of course, but was, how can I, in a more efficient way, get all the computers on the network to agree, and comes up with this craziness called gossip about gossip.
Yes. Simple, look at in retrospect.
Yes, but like, hey, let's do what academia says is the most elegant solution to this problem, but is practically not possible because of you would never come to consensus. Yeah. Let's just remove the need to vote and just gossip about what everybody else knows. And I challenged it as much as I could. I'm sure he had at that stage of talking to much smarter people who had challenged him on it. And frankly, I said, listen, I don't agree with the model of going to license the algorithm. I understood what I think they thought it could do, but I said, that's not what you should do with this at all. And I actually imagine the conversation a lot, because imagine being their age and looking at this 27-year-old punk who had just moved back to America from Budapest and had, one exit under his belt, and I was also...
And what they've achieved in life as well.
Right,
yeah, it's
right.
not just an age thing.
No, I mean, they were... But it's also...
You were in a suit.
Yeah, 20 plus years in the Air Force.
I know.
So the fact that they didn't even get up and walk out, that's all to their credit. Very polite people.
Yeah.
And I said to them, we need to do a public blockchain on this. And they said, oh, we know that's possible with this. We've talked about it. We just think that the best thing to do with it in summer of 2017 is for us not to do a public network right now, but for us to focus on getting enterprise adoption licensing this. And I said, okay, I'm interested in a public network side. Would you entertain a public network? They said, absolutely, in the future we would entertain a public network, but right now we want to focus on this. And I called my wife to get the checkbook. And I wrote them a check into Swirls at the time. There was no Hedera. It wasn't even a term. Yeah. That came a while later, actually, over a year later.
What's that?
What we had was this algorithm called Hashgraph and this company called Swirl. So it was the meeting really ended as, I'm going to write you a check. And then Mance said, okay, but what are you doing? And it was again, the continuation of like my worst fear question for the last 6 months. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm day trading cryptocurrencies. And Bitcoin's running up at this point, and my portfolio is doing very well. But I was just deploying capital. I wasn't like building anything.
There's no challenge. Yeah.
So I told them that
I was passive.
I was an open book. I didn't know how to answer the question. Like, I just sold my company. I'm looking, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I'm thinking to start another business. And he goes, why don't you come do this? And I said, what would I do for you? He goes, how does VP of Business Development sound? And I said, what? Like, literally, like that was
that organic.
No,
that natural.
Swear to God, that was the conversation. It was like literally comes out of his mouth, and I'm like, I think I could do business development. That sounds great. What does that mean to develop business? I had never done anything except I had a formal job at this point in my life. I don't even have a college degree.
No.
So sounds all very corporate-y. There was no wage discussion. There was no compensation discussion. There was a handshake. I shook Mance's hand, and that was it. And now all of a sudden, he's calling me, and I'm working for him.
So you've met these two guys. You've written them a big check.
Yeah.
And you're working for them.
Yeah.
Did you come out of there like, what just happened?
I came out of there like, I very much believe in this thing more than the other things I'm writing checks into. Like, it wasn't clear to me that I should drop everything and go work at Polymath at that point, which was another project that was just getting started, trying to address security tokens. Right. And I didn't feel that way about Polymath, but I wrote a check into Polymath too, and we made a lot of money on Polymath. We were putting money into these other projects, and even to other protocols. Right, there were other people launching protocols. Yeah. Algorand was around this time, and others. And I'm looking at it. But these guys were like reluctant to do a public protocol, which was the strangest thing in the world to me, because it was so obvious to me what they should do. It was like who stands out, like who doesn't belong in this whole ecosystem. Yeah. And it was these two guys.
The older, polite guys. Who were poo-pooing Bitcoin, and it was your interpretation of that, and also not wanting to be what everyone else wants to be, which is a public. Correct. You had that all up, and it's intriguing.
So Mance and Leemon, again, to their credit, had talked about doing a public network. Yeah. I don't think that they were sold on doing it by any means, and it took. I think one of the greatest things that could have happened to help sell them on it was what happened with Bitcoin that year. Bitcoin ran up to, of course, as we know, from 1,000 at the beginning of the year to 20,000, and it was very clear at that stage that we had to stop trying to license this algorithm, which we were still trying to do in the early fall, and just focus on this. And I finally got Mance to agree. Let's stop giving people Hashgraph. In this way, and let's just focus on this public blockchain thing, which is where the name HGC came in, which was, okay, we are going to form a new company. Again, there was no Hedera. We form a new company, which means I'm writing another check because there was no money. We didn't have any money. Yeah. Swirlds had like a couple $1,000,000 that was written by other people, and I'm adding to that pool. Yeah. But it was nothing. It was $2 million, right? Okay. That we had. I'm not taking a salary. Yeah. I'm not getting paid. Is even worse than that, I'm putting everything on my Amex. So I'm just building up this like massive Amex tab. I'm paying it off, but I'm like, hopefully this company works so I can get this back. Yeah. So and a lot of door slams. A lot of people are like, why would we want a Hashgraph algorithm? What is that? The people just didn't get it. And
it was way too advanced for. I mean, people haven't. Still today, people can't comprehend the difference.
But it was our positioning was way off. We were coming to them saying, you're going to build your own blockchain with it, and they said, why would I want to build a blockchain? I don't want to build a blockchain. Yeah. And why should they want to build a blockchain? They should want to use a blockchain that other people are using. Yes. Why would they want their own private blockchain? It doesn't make any sense. Blockchains lose their value when they're private. They need to be public and open. And blockchains become more valuable proportionate to Metcalfe's law, right? Network effects. Yes. A blockchain is only as valuable as the number of other people to the end that are on blockchains. Yes. So this is what's happening during this time. We formed this new company called HGC, which was the Hashgraph Consortium, and we're off to the races. Mance and Leemon say, great, we're going to do a public network. This is at the very end of 2017, but we still remember those large companies we said we're going to license the algorithm to. Go get them to come govern the network. And I'm like, well, hold up. We're gonna do what?
We're gonna do what now?
Yeah, we have to form a company and now convince all of these other companies to run that company and run nodes on this blockchain. Craziness. Honestly, I thought they were smoking crack. It felt like an impossible ask. And that's what started us on the race of trying to build what we now call today the Hedera Governing Council.
And who was the first one to say yes? Not because obviously the companies are so large. Some of them take longer than others, so they might not land in order that we see as the consumer as the order that they said yes in. And who is there any memorable governing council members that you secured? You thought we're not going to get this, and you do, or one that really stands out to you as one you really wanted personally?
Of course. The biggest validation for me was IBM. Yeah, of course. By far. IBM to me was more than just them joining the council. It was my father's largest source of income, how he supported 10 kids. My dad was an IBM business partner. My dad sold mainframes and serviced mainframes in something called MQ, which was a messaging queue, and was, this is how he put food on the table. And I think a lot of what I did as a young man and now in my life as a father is a lot of my behavior can be explained as seeking my father's approval.
Of course.
Getting my father to be proud of me, right? Yeah. Why was I trying to start all these companies? Well, I wanted to be just like my dad, right? Why was I getting into technology just like my dad? my dad was the first person I sent the Hashgraph white paper to, right? It was like I wanted him involved in this way, and we could talk about these things. My dad's an absolute nerd, but in the best way possible, right?
Yeah.
It's like a Trekkie growing up,
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
all into
The whole
science fiction and space and,
Yeah.
and all. And
Amazing.
it was so it made me like naturally curious, and I attribute a lot of my success to having a father like that. I'm losing my train of thought here.
That's okay. So that's okay. And what did your father think when you sent him the white paper?
Yeah,
What did he say?
my father got very. He got it right away. I actually think he understood it even better than I did, and he got it from the enterprise software perspective, which is I license software. Surely I could license this. If companies are going to want blockchains, let's build the private blockchains, which actually didn't help my case because I'm like, no. You're siding with Mance and Leemon. I need you to side with me.
Yeah.
We have to do a public blockchain.
Yeah, because he's a tech guy, so he's
Yes.
gonna. Yes. No,
but he makes his money bread and butter on selling a piece of software and then doing solutions on top of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we'll implement this ERP system for you, or like whatever this large install is going to be, and then
Yeah.
we'll maintain it for you.
Okay.
And do like uptime guarantees and services around it. So he loved that idea of like, hey, here's this amazing product you're getting involved in. We're going to go do this. But he saw the value of what a Hashgraph could be from a consensus perspective.
Yeah.
He had enough of experience to understand that. He definitely, like everybody else at the time, doubted that we would be able to convince the IBMs of the world to join a governing council. So IBM changed it for me. That's when, once we got IBM on board, IBM agreed contingent on you had to get 5 companies total. We have to be one of 5, so 4 other companies.
Yeah.
And then once you get the other 4, if we like the other names, we'll approve a public announcement that we're involved. But you have to get 4 others.
Wow.
But that was
That's a big rider.
big. That was big.
Yeah. But that gave you the motivation, surely, to go out and get whatever it takes.
Sure. And
Yeah.
we were, but the way we got IBM, I mean, listen, you do everything you can at this point, short of like lying and being unethical. But it was, you're kind of representing like, hey, we have 3 others. I can't tell you who they are, but like we think we have 3 others. Have they signed? No, they haven't signed. But we think we have 3
we're
others.
close.
They're gonna
Yeah.
sign. If you sign, they're gonna sign. And we were just
okay.
playing them off
Yeah,
each other,
yeah.
not telling the other who the other was. And then finally we had 5, and then we got together with the 5 at the first council meeting, and I remember sitting in the room and looking, and being like, "Oh my gosh, how did we pull this off? Like how did we pull this off? This was supposed to be
worked.
impossible. It worked.
Yeah.
And now we need to do more. We need to get to. I remember thinking like 10. 10 would be unbelievable. We just got to 10. That'd be amazing. And then I remember thinking like, okay, if we just got to 15, that would be amazing. But like 39 felt like a very, very difficult task. Still clearly is.
Yes.
But yeah, these are long sales cycles. I mean, you're talking to these companies for 9, 12 months, and some of them say no at the end of that, right? Some of them are like, can't do it.
Or it just fizzles out, or
Yeah.
you lose traction, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, it must be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's big, isn't it? Because it's very hard to do. But if you land one, it's such a big. It's a high stakes. It's not like, and a lot of the other blockchains, they concentrate on much smaller use cases, which makes a lot of noise in the short term. But in the long term, it's the ones who land these big companies that are going to be the winners, I think, in the long run.
Yeah.
And Hedera is definitely doing that. So, who else would you like to see on the governing council that isn't there at the moment? Have you got any personal favourites?
Listen, of course. I thought I couldn't. I thought we couldn't beat IBM at the time, and we did. My favorite, of course, was flying to Cleveland, Ohio, in December of a very cold December night. I don't even remember the year. It must have been 2018, and meeting Thomas Kurian, TK, as he's called at Google now. He's the CEO of Google Cloud. He's just under.
He's like second or third in command, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's next in line to be
Google.
the CEO of all of Alphabet.
Yeah.
And Google Cloud is one of their most important business lines, really just second to search. And he had this unbelievable falling out. He was president of Oracle, second to Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, for like 20 plus years. Had a massive falling out over this disagreement on the future of their cloud business, and Google was opportunistic, pulled him over. And I'm sitting in a room with this guy, and again, like imagine like my perspective here for this. I'm still a young guy, 27 years old, no credentials. I couldn't eat I didn't eat the entire day leading into that meeting. I'm pacing up and down the hallway. It's like I don't get nervous for like interviews per se, but when I meet someone like a TK who is I put on a pedestal like this,
course.
and the significance I put in this meeting.
Because the only thing you know about him is everything he's achieved.
Yes.
But you know everything about you.
Yes.
And yeah, so you go into that room.
Well,
you're
I'm
just
like,
thinking,
is he going to know that I'm a total, young, uneducated? I don't have as many degrees as he has. Don't have the career he has. Is he going to just laugh me out of the room when I try to say, I need you to join a governing body and put a node on this network? And at the end of the meeting, he said, let's do this.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? As quick as that?
30-minute meeting. He had decided...
Did you work your way up to get to see him? How did that meeting come about?
Okay, yeah. So there was 6 months of prep work to get to that meeting.
Yeah.
A lot of credit goes to guys named Rich Widmond and Simon Baxis, who, by the way, now run like all of Google's Web3 strategy. We were the first thing. Google did not have a Web3 team. Simon Baxis was an account manager for the cloud at the time, and he'll tell you the same story. It's great. I just bumped into those guys a couple months ago, and they're like, Hedera started our whole Web3 team, which is now like 100 plus people, and it's multifaceted. They've got search and YouTube, and they've got lots of stuff going on, but Hedera was the first blockchain initiative, period, for Google.
Wow.
So we pushed them over the edge. And again, a lot of credit goes to those guys because they had to navigate the behemoth that is this 10,000 plus person organization, and all that bureaucracy, and they got us to the top. You don't get a meeting with TK without sending him 60 plus pages of text, and he reads everything. So before we even got to the meeting, he had decided what he was going to do. I later learned, but he sat through and let me pitch. And at the end, he goes, okay.
Because he'd already decided.
Yeah, he already decided. So he's just making me go, and I'm nervous. Sweaty, I'm like shaking, and it was unbelievable. And then when we announced that, I mean, the significance of that, I can't state enough. I mean, not just in terms of like what happened with HBAR's price and market cap, which is significant, but in terms of the respect that the council got, and then the ease at which we were able to recruit members after, Google was a total game changer. No, I mean, today, what would that be? You don't really get bigger companies than like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. So
any of the above,
Tesla, Twitter.
SpaceX, all
we've talked to them all. And of course,
How
and
Hedera.
Not great in all the circumstances.
Really?
Because companies are always at various different stages of understanding. Some companies you get to and you're like, wow, they get it, right? Other companies you get into them and they're like, wow, they absolutely have no strategy here, especially in 2017, 2018. So, recruiting the governing council will still probably be one of the hardest things I've ever done in my career. I don't know that there's something like that I could do again. And I had decided while I was doing it, I really don't like doing this.
No, it's frustrating, I guess, and
slow. I couldn't leave, especially with when Hedera, people forget, but like when Hedera launched, the token price went psh, and it was like you're in fight or flight mode, right? People are disappointed with you. I'd never lost money for investors at this point. And it was like, how do you go about making this a win-win for everybody, for the developers that are building on the network, for the council members that are agreeing to come govern this thing, for the people who, for the people who care. And I'm proud of that decision. Again, my frontal cortex was still not fully developed at that point, but I'm proud that I didn't run. I remember having these thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. I'm going to lose all the money I put into this, because it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear we're going to be successcul at this point.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So a lot of I definitely nights where I cried myself to sleep, where it was like I'm a one-hit wonder, and this is going to be a failure, and what am I going to do next? Right? People don't remember that. It's only now that we get to look back and be like, wow, that was amazing.
You did good.
But there was a lot of hardship that went into it.
Because you live it day by day. When you look back, it's just events, isn't it?
By the way, still after that meeting, the Google deal almost fell through. I had left and had gotten all celebratory. Like I think we got them. We just had to dot the I's and cross the T's. And I had flown to Budapest for the holidays to be back with my in-laws. And I ended up working all the way through Christmas and New Year's. Didn't get to celebrate, Christmas or New Year's with the family. I'm just at the computer fighting over the remaining contractual terms in the agreement, and it almost fell through.
Really?
Yeah. So I gave up a lot of time for that. Just was not with my wife, was not with the kids. I would leave her I'd be away for a month with a 1-year-old baby. Like a month. I would have to go to Singapore and Tokyo and meet with Nomura. We had to fly them, meet with Nomura. We had to go to Singapore, meet with DBS. We had to go to China. We thought we were going to have Chinese companies in the council, so we met with Huawei and Tencent, and we went to Shenzhen. And I'm just living out of a suitcase with Mance.
Trying to sell a dream.
Mance had never even been to those places. I had been once because I traveled around the world.
And it wasn't great.
So it's like, imagine me and Mance together on this like business trip. And at that point, Mance and I would just look at each other. And, we both kind of at this stage, like almost wanted to break out into tears because it's rejection after rejection after rejection. We both missed our wives and our families.
Of course.
So that's the stuff that I'll never forget. And I cherish that he was like my brother in arms in the trenches, bleeding out with me, and he was such a trooper. I mean, we'd wake up 4 hours of sleep, jet lagged. We weren't flying business class, lie flat seats then. No. We were like, we were bootstrapping this thing. And I'd look at him and be like, whoa, man, this guy looks exhausted.
But he's still there.
He's still there pitching, showing up.